The Life and Times of Theodore Addison, 5th Grade Challenge, by Jamaal. Saturday. Next morning, James woke up debating whether he should go meet Amber downtown. Since he didn't have her number or any other way of contacting her, he didn't have any reason to expect that she'd be there. And he still had no way of knowing whether this whole thing was a setup. Ted hadn't gotten back to him with any updates. Maybe he found nothing. Nevertheless, he got up, got dressed, and headed out. He didn't wear his best clothes, or that might come off as if they were going on a date. It'd be even worse if she didn't show up. Besides, she wanted to meet at a fast food restaurant, one that he avoided as much as possible. Standard clothes. At 11:45, when he arrived at Oracle Park, he looked around for Archie's, and when he spotted it, started to walk to it. Hopefully, Amber showed up on the off chance he'd be there. As he walked, though, he spotted another Archie's sign about 2 blocks away, and another one at the end of the park, and another one that he'd already passed. There were 4 Archies by Oracle Park, and Amber hadn't specified which one. In a panic, he started walking quickly to each restaurant, scanning the lobbies and dining areas on both floors before heading out and darting down the street for the next restaurant. He made at least 3 full trips between each Archie's until he realized how silly he must have looked. If Veronica had been there filming him from across the street, she would have had more than enough material to humiliate him. It was now 12:30, and his feet were tired. James figured that Amber wasn't coming, and thought he was a fool for even thinking she'd come after he didn't answer her. Monday was going to be awkward when he'd have to tell her he wanted to come, but didn't have her number. If he wasn't such a religious boy, he'd have lied and said he never opened the paper ball to begin with, and feigned annoyance that she threw something at him. But no, he had to be honest. Meanwhile, Amber, after putting on her bright summer dress, arrived at Oracle Park around 12:15, hoping she hadn't missed James. She sat there waiting for him to show up, to no avail. After about 10 minutes, she got up and asked the manager on duty if she saw a young, tall, dark-skinned foreign boy come in. The manager, who knew Amber, said no, but asked why she'd gotten all dressed up for this boy. "Is this a date, little Ambrosa?" "No, it's just... Oh, never mind. It's nothing. I was supposed to meet somebody here to study." "Well, did you check the other Archies? Might your friend have gone to one of those to wait for you?" the manager asked. Then it hit Amber. There were 5 Archies in the neighborhood, and she hadn't told James which one. She got up and darted out the door to the other restaurants, hoping to catch him. Then she froze. He didn't tell her he was coming to begin with. What was the point of coming downtown in the first place, or trying to check the other spots? It was a fool's errand, she told herself. The weather, though, was nice, so she took a walk, hoping against hope that he came after all. When she came to the first Archie's, she gave James's description to the manager and asked if he saw him. He answered no, but also said he'd just started his shift. The other manager, who was walking past them out the door, said, "Yeah, the boy with the yarmulke. He keeps coming in and out like he's searching for lost keys or something." "That's him!" Amber shrieked. He really had come, but where is he now? Amber thought for a minute that if she went out searching for him, they might miss each other. So she asked for a piece of receipt paper and started writing a note for the manager to hand to James next time he popped in there. After handing it to the manager, She left and began running to the next Archie's, where she'd repeat the process again. But as she was hurrying, she by chance looked at the bus stop down the street and saw James waiting and a bus approaching. With everything she had, she sprinted down the street for James, trying to call out to him, with her quiet voice not traveling more than a few feet. It didn't help that she was already winded since she'd been one of the worst PE students in her class. As for James, he was hungry and tired. He had thought about eating at Archie's to at least get his energy back, but after searching there again and again for Amber, it was painful thinking about eating there alone. On top of that, he was embarrassed. He didn't want to show his face in the restaurant again. And he didn't want anyone to know he'd even attempted coming downtown to find Amber. He just wanted to get home and forget that morning had ever happened. Thankfully, his bus was arriving. As James lined up to get on the bus, he looked skyward and said in his native language, "Jehovah Rapha, you can heal hurting hearts too." Just then, someone slammed into him and wrapped their arms around him. "You came!" This voice shrieked again and again. James recognized Amber's voice, but when he turned around trying to get free of her grip, he barely recognized her appearance. She never wore bright clothes to school before. Either way, she was breathtaking.
Hi,"
James stammered. Hi. Thanks for coming?" Amber said, instantly regretting her words. They stood there awkwardly, wondering what to say next. James thought about complimenting her looks, but he didn't know how to say it without sounding like he liked her. Too soon, he thought. Amber thought about asking him why he didn't tell her he'd come, but that would have sounded combative. James's stomach growled loudly, relieving the tension. Amber laughed and asked if he was hungry, to which James nervously nodded. Amber started to reach for James's hand to lead him to the Archies they would eat at, but she thought better of it and instead tugged his sleeve to beckon him on. "By the way," she started, "sorry I didn't think to tell you which Archies it was. Guess I just forgot since I always only go to this one on the other side of the park. It's quieter and nicer." James said it was no problem, putting a good face on. If he was honest, though, it was a major headache for him to run around to one place after another. He mostly remained silent until they arrived. It was 4 minutes of excruciating awkwardness for both of them. James didn't know what to say, and Amber didn't want to say something dumb and torpedo her chances. She didn't want to push her luck any further than she already had. Getting him there was enough reason to celebrate. When they finally arrived, they walked inside and a light flashed in their faces. The manager had taken a photo of them on her phone before saying, "I knew it was a date. Look at her blush." After a few moments of ribbing the clearly embarrassed girl in front of all her coworkers, the manager told them to give Amber and James a free meal. Amber's eyes lit up, but James was less than pleased. Now he'd feel obligated to eat more. It was a shame, too, since his favorite kosher restaurant was just down the street. Amber went ahead and ordered what she wanted and took James's order, too. James ordered the fish burger to avoid even the possibility that the beef wasn't kosher, since the beef from the back half of the cow was ceremonially unclean. After receiving the meal, the two sat down at a quieter part of the lobby where the cushioned chairs were. James hadn't realized how tired he was from all the walking. He sunk into the chair and took a deep breath, relaxing his shoulders. That said, his nervous face didn't relax even a bit as he stared down at his food. Looking at him with a degree of pity, Amber asked, "It took a lot for you to come here, didn't it?" James looked up at Amber and nodded his head.
I did not know if it was the right decision. I could not call you to say yes or no.
"What do you mean?" Amber asked, puzzled. James reached into his pocket and pulled out her note to him.
You never wrote your phone number.
Amber looked over the note, turning it over, checking everywhere she could until she smacked her forehead. Estúpida! Estúpida! Estúpida!
Well, it worked out,
James said, trying to comfort her.
We are here now.
You're right. Sorry for the unnecessary trouble, though. I can see on you how tired you must be. Let's eat first and talk later, okay? By the way, do you normally eat this kind of food where you're from? James shook his head and told her he didn't start eating fast food until he came to America. Do they even have Archies in your home country? She asked.
Yes, but only in the big cities. We have them in both my home countries.
Both?
Yes. I am from Ethiopia, and then I moved to Israel for a couple of years. Then I came here.
Your English is pretty good then, Amber said.
Thanks. In Ethiopia, everyone must learn English in school. In Israel, many people also speak English.
So, what language do you normally speak at home?
Hebrew and Amharic. My parents can also speak English well.
For me, my parents made me study Spanish first, and then English. They didn't want me to lose my connection to our heritage, so...
Yeah, and have you ever noticed how you could switch languages and not even notice, and then your friends get confused?
James asked, getting more into the conversation. The two continued to talk for over an hour, having never touched their food before they realized it was too cold to eat. At one point, Amber asked James about his two home countries and what he meant by that. If I remember correctly, you said you lived in Israel for 2 years before you came here? 7 or 8 in Ethiopia? What makes Israel your other home country?
You did not know? I am Jewish.
I mean, I see you wearing that yarmulke every day, but I guess I never put 2 and 2 together. Do you mean you follow the Jewish religion, or that you're ethnically Jewish? I mean, I've never seen Jewish people with dark skin like yours before. Amber had hoped that she wouldn't offend him with her question, but it just came out wrong. Fortunately, he didn't seem offended.
When the Jews all lived in Israel 2,000 years ago, well, not all of them, but a lot of them. Anyway, the Roman Empire controlled everything. My people rose up to fight them, but then they came and destroyed Jerusalem, and a lot of people scattered across the world, where many of them still live today. Some people went to Greece, others went to Babylon in Iraq, others went even further, like Russia. My ancestors went to Africa. 2,000 years later, we look like the people we were around most. So, ethnically, I am Jewish. Religiously, I am Jewish too. I read a Bible written by Jews who lived in Israel and followed the teachings of a Jewish rabbi, who is the descendant of King David, Yeshua. You know him as Jesus.
Amber was delighted in his story, grateful that he was opening up to her. but she still had a nagging question.
If Israel is your ancestral home, why did you come here?
There were a few reasons. First, we were mistreated because of our African heritage. We were treated like fake Jews. It got even worse when they learned that we believed in Jesus. Then we were really treated as foreigners. It felt strange because many of the people who insulted us did not really think about God at all. But that was not it. There was more. One day, my mom took Zahava and me to the playground. While we were playing, we heard sirens. We had to hide behind an old tree log. Then I looked up and saw a rocket flying overhead. It exploded down the street from the playground. My mom pulled us as she ran as fast as she could to get us home. But even at home, we did not feel safe. My dad tried to convince my mom to stay, but I remember hearing my mom say, "Why should we stay? To die where our ancestors did? No, they would want us to live." And then she said, "Pick a place and we will go, but we cannot stay here." She grabbed a globe and spun it. My dad pointed to America. Then they started applying to immigrate, and a year later, here we are.
Amber was hanging on his every word, like one of her favorite books.
But James didn't seem enthusiastic about being in the US. "Here we are" sounded like the end of someone's story about how they got thrown in jail. Amber knew firsthand that there were tons of people waiting in line to get into the United States, yet James seemed so unappreciative of this opportunity. Why couldn't he see how lucky he was? Then she understood.
You had a home twice, and it was taken from you.
James avoided eye contact, but nodded.
And you're partly expecting this home to be taken away from you too, huh?
Amber asked. Again, James nodded, with his hands neatly folded on the table. Amber reached out and put her hand on his, prompting him to look up surprised. It was very out of step for Amber, but she felt like he needed that more than she needed to keep her feelings to herself.
Home is where you are loved. That's what my grandmother told me.
That got James's attention, especially as he looked at her cheeky grin. It reminded him that she actually liked him. He'd been so afraid of making a fool of himself that he forgot she was interested in him. Amber continued.
My dad always takes me to Mexico to see this or that. Sometimes it's culture, other times it's archaeology, but to be honest, I don't feel at home there. I only get that feeling when I come back here.
I think you are right, but in Ethiopia, I was surrounded by people that spoke the same language and looked like me. In Israel, I had lots of people around me with the same ancestors and the same language as well. What do I have here? Everything is different. The sounds, the smells, the food, everything. Even the people who look similar to me are very different in every other way.
Well, let me ask you this,
Amber replied.
Do your friends care about you?
Yes.
Do you care about them?
Yes,
James answered again.
Well then, welcome home.
As she said that, a scripture, Proverbs 15 verse 17, crossed his mind. Better a dish of vegetables where there is love than a fattened ox with hatred.
I know you are right, but it is difficult to get used to this place, James said.
Don't worry, you'll have help,
Amber replied, winking. As much as James liked the feeling of having a girl admire him so much, it felt awkward, and he was anxious to change the subject. Besides, talking about his feelings was very uncomfortable.
I have a question, he started. Why do you love books so much?
Oh, it's because for a long while, it's all I had. Back when I was younger, we didn't have a TV, so I used to watch movies on my mom's computer from time to time. But then I found the books the movies were based on, and I read them. Then one after another, I thought the book was far better than the movie. Like, the movie helped me visualize the book, but the book was deeper, so I stuck with books. Then we got a TV. I tried to watch it, but again, it was shallow. I guess it was better than the 30-minute time limits. Really, it was a 22-minute limit because of the commercials. Anyway, I didn't like the limits and figured whoever wrote the story had a reason for including all those details. I didn't want that being cut off just because some director thinks I'd have a short attention span.
The two continued to talk all afternoon, developing a deep connection. To James, Amber was a hidden gem. Pretty, thoughtful, intelligent, and warm. To Amber, James was a boy of many layers. As wounded as he was, and as reserved as he was, she knew he was a great guy and wanted to peel back all the layers until she knew everything about him. That, though, would have to come with time, she knew. Only when one of the workers came and grabbed their trays did they realize they were chilly after the sun shifted away from their window. Now in the shade, Amber checked the clock and realized it was late and she needed to get home soon.
I'm so sorry. I have to go,
she said as she frantically gathered her belongings and dashed out the door. She had to be home by 5.
See you Monday.
As James sat there, befuddled, several thoughts crashed together in his mind at once. The two hadn't touched their books or even pulled them out of their backpacks. Studying together was ostensibly the reason they met. Was this what Ted warned about? That Veronica would put the girls up to something like this to distract them from studying? Amber seemed far too innocent and trustworthy to be that type of girl. After all, how could someone springing a trap on him be so concerned for his mental and emotional well-being? Then again, she was Veronica's partner and would be competing against him directly in the competition. He didn't know what to think or who to trust, but he did know he'd have to get home and study as diligently as he could. He lost a full afternoon already. When Amber arrived home, it was 5:03.
Sorry I'm late. I just lost track of time,
she said to her mom, panting.
No worries. Just glad you're safe.
How'd it go?
It was nice. I would say fun, but we didn't do anything but talk. I'm surprised he even showed up.
Great to hear. Tell me more after dinner. Oh, and your friend Veronica called? Get back to her, would you?
Friend?
Amber said under her breath as she went to her bedroom. Annoyed, she figured Veronica wanted a report of how the date went, but Amber was in no mood to provide one. She can wait. She's not royalty. Instead of studying or talking for the rest of the night, her imagination ran wild with fantasies about what life with James would be like. James, however, soldiered on, studying as intensely as he could before his energy ran out, and he fell asleep on his work desk in his bedroom. There were only so many speed drills he could do before he couldn't take it anymore.